So that's the first thing on here. You might see instead of y, we just got done talking about functions, so you could have an f of x in place of a y. It means the same thing. That's the form that we typically see lines in, and that's kind of our favorite form when we know that M and B, but you could also have standard form. We'll talk more about that later on, but I went ahead and put the definition on here. If I'm going to use the term, you might as well know what I mean. AX plus BY equals C is another form we might see our lines. In that case, your A, B, and C are integers. They can't have a greatest common factor other than 1. And A has to be positive. Now we'll work more with that next week when we review how to write equations of lines. But I went ahead and put it on here today. How do you find slope of a line? That M is our slope. How do we find that? Rise over run. In terms of 2 points, do we do the change in y over the change in x? So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. We might also, instead of saying slope, I might say find the average rate of change. It means the same thing. It's just a measure of how steep your line is. So let's say I asked you to draw a graph of this. What do you have to do to graph this line? Start with the y-intercept. That is the b value, which is 7 here. That's a point on the y-axis. Then slope is 3, so that means you go down 3 and over 1. Hopefully you guys can draw a slightly straighter line than I did. Use another piece of paper as a ruler or something if you need to. A minimum of 2 points on that. What would be the domain of this line? We've talked about domain going left to right. This line extends forever to the left. That one extends forever to the right. So eventually we're hitting everything. That's negative to positive infinity. The range is bottom to top. So that's going down forever. This side's going up forever. So it is also negative infinity to positive infinity. That will be the case always for every line unless your line is vertical or horizontal. Okay, but as long as it's a regular slanted line, non-vertical or horizontal, domain and range are always negative infinity to positive infinity. All right, do we need another one like that? Good with that. What if I said x equals 3? If it's just x equals, that means it's a vertical line. So I just have a vertical line at negative 3. Is that a function, by the way? No, it would fail the vertical line test. That's why it's not f of x equals. So that's not a function. My domain. We only hit, as I'm traveling from left to right, I only hit one x value, and that's negative 3. So we can't even do an interval there since there's only one. So we just put it in a solution set. There's only one value that our x can equal. Our range is referring to our y's. So going from the bottom up, what would my range be? So the next one is very similar. What's the difference? The last one I had was x equals, and x equals is a vertical line. But if we look, this one is f of x. And f of x is like y. This is like saying your y equals negative 3. So that is a horizontal line at negative So domain, as I go from left to right, it extends forever in both directions. So this time I'm hitting all of my x's, but the range, I only hit a single y value of -3. If I gave you a line in standard form, like 3x plus 4y equals 0, what would you do to graph it? Get y by itself. All right, once you guys do that, get y by itself, draw the graph, and give domain range. Solve for y. You subtract over your 3x. Then to get the y by itself, you have to divide by 4. So we get y equals -3/4 x. If I don't have a y-intercept on there, what is it?
0.
So my y-intercept is 0. Slope is -3/4, so you can either go up 3 and backwards 4, or down 3 and right 4. So it should look like that. Is that line increasing or decreasing, by the way? Good. So if you have a negative slope, it's a decreasing line. If you have a positive slope, it's increasing. What happens on a case like this? What would we call that line? Constant. Those horizontal lines are a constant line. What's the slope of a horizontal line? Let's think about it. Okay, so for horizontal, slope is rise over run, right? So if I took 2 points on this line, starting at 1 to get to the other, my rise would be 0. My run is 3 with 2 points I picked, so I get a slope of 0. If you have a vertical line, so if you pick 2 points, by the way, does it matter which 2 points I pick? Nope, any 2 points will have the same slope. My rise here is 1, my run is 0, so that one is undefined. So, slope of a vertical line is always undefined. So if you have x equals a number, we know that's just a vertical line, the slope's undefined. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. When you get to the homework, it's going to say, like, identify any constant functions. So those would just be horizontal lines. Those are the constant functions. All right. So do you guys remember how to find slope? I gave you the formula already. We're going to do one together, and then I'm going to have you guys try a couple. So it's y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So this is like the x in the first, the y in the first, the x in the second, and the y in the second. So my slope, we get -6 minus 4 over 2 minus -2. So -10 over 4, which reduces to -5/2. You can certainly write that as a decimal, -2.5 if you want, but when we find these slopes, a lot of times we're going to be turning around and graphing the line, and it's a little bit easier to graph if you have that fraction for the rise over run purposes. So why don't you guys do B and C? Find those slopes. So for B, y sub 2 is 8 minus y sub 1 is 8. X sub 2 is 5 minus x sub 1 is -3. So we get 0 over 8, which is 0. So what kind of line is this? Horizontal. Good. What would be the equation of this line? Could you guys tell me just by looking at those points? We know a horizontal line is y equals something. Yeah, this would have to be a y equals 8. Good. We haven't done that yet. We'll do it next week, but just want to see what you remembered. Okay, C. Change in y over change in x. So 10 minus negative 10 over negative 4 minus negative 4. So we get a 20 divided by 0, which is undefined. So what kind of line is that? Vertical. What would the equation be? X equals negative 4. Good. All right. Just a couple more examples and then I'm done for today. If I give you a point and a slope, do you know how to graph your line? What do you do first? We don't even need the equation. I mean, we will write the equation later on, but not today. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. If I just want the graph, I gave you a point. So I start there, negative 2, negative 3. And then my slope is 4/3, so that's up 4 and over 3. Put another one on here for you guys to draw. So try that one on your own. So factor point and slope, and it should look like that. The last thing I wanted to mention, slope is the same thing as an average rate of change. So I might give you a problem and ask you to identify the average rate of change in that problem. So all I'm really asking you to do is find a slope. So in 2001, DVD sales were $12.7 million. In 2006, sales were $19.8 million. Find the average rate of change. So I'm asking you for a slope. To find slope, I need two ordered pairs. So the first one, my year is 2001, and the sales were 12.7. Right. In 2006, our sales were 19.8. So average rate of change, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And we get 1.45. What if I wanted to put units on that? What would my units be? Slope is a rate of change. If you think about the top was the y, my y is the 19.8 and the 12.7, those were measured in million. Per, for the division sign, the bottom, 2006 and 2001, those were years. It's a positive, so it's saying that the sales went up 1.45 million per year. All right, last one. So in 1997, the sale of VCRs was 16.7. In 2002, the sales were 13.3. Find the average rate of change. So what would my 2 points be?
19.7, 16.7, and then 2002, 13.
So slope, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. 0.68. You guys checking me? You don't trust me, do you? Dangerous. Why is this one a negative? It went down. My Y was million, my X was again years, so it went down 0.68 million per year. All right, so I wanted to give you guys plenty of time today to work on your assignment. We've got a good chunk of class remaining. It is printed on here. Remember, when you see, oh, my board just froze up. EOE, that means every other even. It's not quite as many problems as it looks like. There's like 3 sets of matching problems, so those should go fairly quickly.